Following 4.5 years outside the cage, the aftermath of a devastating leg fracture, a scrapped bout, and an 18-month anti-doping ban, Conor McGregor's comeback moment has arrived.
Plan was for him to be out as long as he's been.
Well, first problem was that he broke that shin bone. He was recovering from that.
Yet something unprecedented awaits him upon his return that absolutely nobody anticipated. The most extended absence in UFC history sees Conor McGregor missing from competition for over 4.5 years straight. Allow that time frame to truly register, because within mixed martial arts, a discipline characterized by constant evolution where title holders can surrender their belts and disappear into irrelevance within 12 months, 4.5 years represents far more than an anomaly. This absence stands completely unmatched for any athlete of McGregor's magnitude. His final UFC appearance occurred July 10, 2021 at UFC 2064 facing Dustin Poirier, concluding in the most gruesome manner possible when his left leg bones shattered completely as round 1 expired. The compound break was broadcast live, replayed in excruciating detail for millions watching globally. Surgical hardware was immediately implanted, followed by months using crutches, then years of intensive rehabilitation exceeding what most competitors ever endure. That single catastrophic moment eliminated nearly 3 complete years from his career before serious return discussions could even commence. For perspective, during McGregor's absence, the UFC has installed and removed multiple champions across various divisions. Islam Makhachev has established lightweight supremacy. Alex Pereira has claimed titles in 2 weight classes. The sport has progressed at lightning pace, while McGregor observed from the sidelines, healing and anticipating his cage door reopening. By mid-2024, the comeback finally seemed to materialize. McGregor was officially scheduled against Michael Chandler at UFC 303 on June 29, 2024, a massive spectacle during International Fight Week in Las Vegas that had the entire combat sports universe marking calendars. The anticipation had been building over a year, with Chandler patiently waiting, coaching opposite McGregor on The Ultimate Fighter, challenging him constantly, and transforming his career into preparation for lightweight history's biggest payday. Then, mere days before the event, when promotional materials were finalized and tickets completely sold out, McGregor withdrew after breaking his toe during training camp. Dana White publicly confirmed the injury. The entire card required overnight restructuring in one of the most chaotic last-minute reshuffles the UFC had ever executed, returning McGregor to the starting line. Any realistic comeback timeline now suggested 2025 at minimum, or more likely deep into 2026. However, the toe represented just one setback in an accumulating series of obstacles. On October 7, 2025, Combat Sports Anti-Doping, the UFC's internal anti-doping program replacing the former USADA partnership, announced McGregor had accepted an 18-month suspension for 3 whereabouts violations under UFC anti-doping policy. This distinction requires clear understanding because this was not a positive drug test or failed sample, but rather failure to provide accurate location information for random out-of-competition testing on 3 separate occasions, representing a procedural violation, not substance-related. The standard penalty for 3 whereabouts failures would normally be 24 months, but McGregor's cooperation and mitigating circumstances reduced the ban to 18 months. The suspension applied retroactively from September 20, 2024, the 3rd missed test date, running through March 20, 2026. That March 20, 2026 date arrives in less than 4 weeks, and Conor McGregor is absolutely not remaining silent about it. Dana White has discussed extensively the complexities surrounding McGregor's octagon return, with his comments over recent years painting a picture of a promotion genuinely wanting their biggest stars comeback while recognizing the difficulties managing a fighter who has completely transcended the sport. Even before the anti-doping suspension became relevant, White was remarkably candid about challenges emerging when fighters reach McGregor's stratospheric wealth level. In one Championship Rounds podcast interview, White explained the reality surrounding McGregor's inactivity with complete transparency.
That was one of the reasons we had it. And the other problem is he's fucking rich.
That leg fracture was, as White confirmed directly, the primary medical reason the absence expanded from months into years. But beyond physical recovery, beyond surgeries and rehabilitation, and slowly rebuilding structural integrity of a leg shattered on live television, White identified a deeper, more fundamental issue having nothing to do with bones or tendons or surgical hardware.
So are we at a point here where Conor McGregor may never fight for the UFC? Can you say that?
White was directly questioned whether McGregor's wealth presented a practical negotiation obstacle, whether the UFC could realistically motivate a man worth hundreds of millions to absorb punishment and risk inherent in facing another trained fighter inside a cage.
Would you be sitting here right now asking me this question?
The question lingered, and White's response was among the most direct statements he has ever made on any podcast.
Wanting to re-sign him to a longer contract?
Conor McGregor has probably been one of the best business partners we've ever had.
Absolutely not. You would not. That frank exchange encapsulated the entire predicament. When fighters accumulate the fortune McGregor has amassed through proper 12 whiskey sales, extensive endorsement portfolio, and sprawling business empire under McGregor Sports and Entertainment, the fundamental motivation to train, cut weight, and risk serious physical harm fundamentally transforms. White was not being dismissive, but honest about human nature and how financial security reshapes one's relationship with suffering. Even within that candid assessment, White carefully separated the money conversation from any suggestion that McGregor is a difficult business partner. In the same interview series, the UFC president offered one of his most direct endorsements of McGregor's professionalism.
Doing business with Conor is getting Conor to show up on time is a problem.
Even when White acknowledged McGregor's occasional tardiness, the praise remained firmly intact.
But Conor, as far as the business goes, for a guy, everybody talks about how Conor used to be on the dole and all this stuff. For a guy that was on the dole,
White continued, specifically addressing narratives that McGregor's humble origins might have left him unprepared for high-level business dealings.
Conor McGregor is a very good businessman, and Conor McGregor's always been a great partner to us. There's never any...
White then delivered the core of his defense that McGregor's background has never been a liability in their partnership.
Conor McGregor has never done anything even remotely close to that. It's the exact opposite. When it's time to dig in and get to work.
White saved his strongest praise for last.
There's no lack of communication. Not at all. You know where Conor is tonight?
Probably at a bar.
No. He's in New York City for the premiere of Roadhouse.
White concluded with possibly the single highest compliment he has ever paid any fighter on his roster. The picture is clear that the UFC wants McGregor back. McGregor wants to return, but the suspension, injury cascade, and sheer complexity of scheduling a return for MMA history's biggest star have created a gap now stretching nearly 5 years. The suspension ends March 20th, the clock approaches zero, and as you will see, McGregor has been doing everything possible to ensure the world knows he is ready. If one trait separates Conor McGregor from virtually every other fighter in combat sports history, beyond his left hand, beyond his timing, beyond his ability to perform under the brightest lights, it is his mastery of narrative control. McGregor does not wait for stories to be written about him, but writes them himself in real time on the largest available platforms, daring media to keep pace. In February 2026, he has wielded that ability with the intensity of someone knowing the finish line is within sight and furious that the final yards are taking this long. The campaign began late January 2026, around January 28th and 29th, when McGregor flooded his social media accounts with training and sparring footage, captioning posts with unambiguous declarations. The footage showed him working extensively with tall sparring partners specifically sized to mimic welterweight opponents, drilling ground control sequences at SBG Ireland in Dublin. The message was unmistakable because this was not a retired fighter casually working out for content or an aging star shadowboxing on a yacht for Instagram engagement, but a man deep in active, structured, purpose-driven fight camp preparation. On February 18th, McGregor posted a tweet that ignited the entire combat sports world with exact words stating he had been offered an opponent and date and accepted, waiting on his contract. He deleted the post shortly afterward, a classic McGregor maneuver, but not before screenshots were captured and reported by MMA Junkie, Fightful, and every major outlet. The date he referenced, according to widespread reporting, was the UFC White House card June 14, 2026, an event tied to America's 250th birthday celebrations set for the White House South Lawn itself. 3 days later, on February 21st evening, while a UFC Fight Night aired live, McGregor struck again, posting about a no-name opponent being next and accepting, demanding the contract alongside a screenshot of current UFC welterweight rankings, signaling his return at 170 pounds where his cancelled Chandler fight was booked. That post was also deleted, but damage was done with USA Today, Yahoo Sports, and Bloody Elbow running the story within hours. By Monday, February 23rd, McGregor's patience had visibly frayed as he posted and again deleted the most pointed message yet about day 15 of accepting without receiving a contract, with MMA Fighting calling it venting frustration and Bloody Elbow describing it as airing grievances with the UFC's pace. That same day, McGregor posted about many announcements at McGregor Sports and Entertainment, which in the context of active UFC negotiations reads as a signal that official news could be imminent. By February 24th, he posted cryptic double exclamation marks alongside photographs, keeping the cycle alive without revealing anything concrete. The pattern is unmistakable, as McGregor runs a textbook pressure campaign with surgical precision by posting bombshell claims, deleting them before the UFC can respond officially, letting the media cycle amplify across dozens of outlets and millions of social media impressions, then posting again the next day with incrementally escalating pressure. Every deleted tweet functions as a controlled detonation loud enough to generate international headlines and trending topics while remaining deniable enough to avoid contractual or legal complications, weaponizing his 47 million social media following with the entire global combat sports media ecosystem functioning as his personal megaphone. Dana White, meanwhile, was having none of the theatrics, delivering at the UFC Houston post-fight press conference on February 22nd, a line that has become his default response every time McGregor takes to social media, stating if it was done and he accepted, he would announce it, 11 words cutting through every headline, every deleted tweet, every sparring clip, because nothing is official until Dana White says it is official. White's pushback goes further, as he has explicitly ruled out Michael Chandler as McGregor's return opponent, killing a matchup assumed for over 2 years, and stated the UFC has not even begun negotiating specific bouts for the White House card, remaining coy and non-committal when asked directly about McGregor headlining the June 14th event.
He has obligations right now to promote this movie. So he's been flying all over the world, going to all the premieres of this launch of this movie.
White then elaborated on the juggling act between McGregor's entertainment career and his fighting career.
He committed to this movie. He has obligations to this movie. He can't do both. So once this movie launches, which is Thursday, this thing...
That comment carries direct relevance to the current moment, because even now McGregor's portfolio of business interests, from McGregor Sports and Entertainment to various endorsement deals, creates scheduling complexity that most fighters simply do not face. But White made clear that once external obligations are handled, the path to the octagon opens. White tied it together with the bottom line on when real negotiations could begin. And that framework of clearing external obligations first, then full-time training, then fight negotiations mirrors exactly what is happening right now, with the suspension being the current obligation ending March 20th, after which the negotiation window McGregor has been publicly demanding for 15 days and counting will presumably open in earnest. White also acknowledged the fundamental challenge of motivating a fighter who has already achieved everything the sport has to offer and then some, laying out the psychological reality with characteristic directness about how once you start making a lot of money, you are not as hungry as before, making it harder to get in the gym and grind as hard as you used to. That is the intangible factor that no suspension date or contract clause can resolve, because McGregor's fortune estimated in the hundreds of millions means the octagon is no longer a financial necessity but a choice, and White has made clear that choice is ultimately McGregor's to make. However, White has also said repeatedly and with conviction that McGregor has been dead serious about wanting the White House fight, confirming in 2025 that the two sides had been talking non-stop about the June 2026 event, with the anti-doping suspension ending on March 20th being conveniently timed to allow McGregor eligibility well before the June card. So here is where everything stands, as of this moment, with McGregor's suspension ending in less than 4 weeks, him in active training camp at SBG Ireland, having publicly accepted a fight offer against an opponent he does not even know the name of, while counting the days since he said yes, Dana White confirming negotiations are real, but refusing to announce anything until contracts are signed, the White House card on June 14th, remaining the overwhelming target with Chandler out and a welterweight bout against an as-yet unnamed opponent being the likely framework. McGregor turns 38 in July 2026, making a June White House fight his first in nearly 5 years and arguably the most significant spectacle in UFC history, with a returning legend fighting on the lawn of the most powerful building on Earth during the nation's 250th birthday, before what could be the largest live audience in the promotion's existence. The stakes extend far beyond one fight or one fighter, because this is about whether the biggest cultural crossover star the sport has ever produced can defy time, injury, suspension, and the gravitational pull of immense wealth to do the one thing that made him famous in the first place, which is fight. The notorious era may be returning, with the contract being what stands between speculation and certainty, and if Dana White's track record tells us anything, when that contract is signed, you will not need a deleted tweet to find out, because you will hear it from the UFC itself, announced with every ounce of promotional force the organization can muster. Until that moment arrives, the countdown continues, with every passing day bringing March 20th and whatever comes after it one step closer. As the world watches, McGregor remains ready, and the only question left is whether the UFC is ready to pull the trigger.